Welcome in to Pucks and Prosecco, powered by our good friends at Accurate America. In just a moment, I'll be joined by Chloe Theil and a very special guest to talk more about this Stanley Cup Final, Edmonton versus Florida, keying in on the Edmonton side of things.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Pucks and Prosecco. Meghan Angley, joined by Chloe Theil. We've got another Cup Final Pucks and Prosecco episode for you this time. I wouldn't say that our last one wasn't totally serious, but it was definitely a lot sillier. We talked power play, penalty kill, but also Hunter the Lynx,
The Lynx and his abs.
his six-pack that
Yeah.
we still don't understand why he has.
Yeah, this one is definitely going to be a little more serious, but I think it's fun to switch it up every once in a while.
No, absolutely. This has been, all right, I'm sure when we introduced our guest, it maybe hasn't been everything he's hoped and dreamed for in this Cup Final, but it has been wonderful to watch so far when you don't have an emotional investment in what's going on.
The stress.
The stress of Avs Dallas, I'm still reeling from it, but these have been really close games. And obviously game 3, a little bit of a different story for Edmonton, Florida. Obviously Florida has a slight lead in this series now, 2-1, but it's been, 2 overtime games leading up to this decided by really close margins. So I'm having a blast. How are you doing, Chloe?
I'm doing so well. It's so fun to watch. Like you said, usually I get a lot of anxiety watching Colorado play in the playoffs.
Yes.
So it's very, very nice not to have that worry. But nobody be confused. I'm wearing an NBA hat, but we will be talking NHL.
Chloe's a multi-sport girly. If you're new here,
Yeah.
she's got her pulse for everything that's going on in the sports world.
Basically. Ask me any question
Ask
about
me
sports
anything.
ever, and I'll know it. That's not the truth. Don't do that.
But she'll definitely have an answer, and that's what I love about her. All right, we're going to introduce Tom Gazzola. He's the host of the Oil Stream pre- and post-game show, and I've been on for the pre-game show for Avs Edmonton in the regular season, so I'm excited to finally have him on our show to give us the full scoop on everything that's going on with the Edmonton Oilers. So without further ado, let's bring Tom into the fold. Hey, Tom, how's it going?
Hi, Megan. I get to return the favor. You guys, this is going to be fun. And I'll say this, Megan, you're great on the pregame show up here in Edmonton on Edmonton Sports Talk. And yeah, the Oil Stream last night on the postgame show was a little sassy.
A little sassy.
We
That's
love sass here, so that's a
interesting.
coincidence.
I feel like post-game shows after losses can go one of two ways. You're either kind of mourning, commiserating together, or everybody is acting as if the sky is falling, like you were saying earlier, Tom. And as a host on that show, sometimes I don't know if it ever gets thrown back at you a little bit, but it's not an easy job to conduct that kind of a post-game show after such a difficult game 3 for Edmonton.
Yeah.
It does get thrown back at you, and people come at you with all kinds of weird takes. Was getting it last night. What were people getting mad at me for? Saying that I was being negative when they were saying the sky was falling. And I was like, wait a second. All I said was Evander Kane set the tone with 2 really bad penalties to start the game. By the way, there was a bad too many men penalty that Leon Draisaitl was the guy that was kind of unfocused and hopped on the ice for. And then Victor Arvidsson takes an interference penalty, and, Sergei Bobrovsky sells it. So it is true. Like it's high intensity. Some people just want to get mad, and either they're getting mad at the team or the situation or the hosts. And to be honest with you, I kind of love it. I live for it.
It just, it galvanizes you a bit. I love to hear it, and I'm going to kick it off actually with Chloe to unpack a little bit more of this game 3, especially on the discipline and officiating side of things.
Yeah, let's start with exactly what you were talking about. A big part of that game was the penalties. Florida scoring 3 of their 6 goals coming from the power play. And then Evander Kane coming out and saying that it just seems like the Panthers are getting away with more penalties. Did you see that the officiating had an impact on this game yesterday?
It did. There's no question that the officiating had a big time impact. I mean, Edmonton was 8 for 11 on the penalty kill. You mentioned the 3 goals that the Panthers were able to get on the man advantage. Absolutely. Like, Edmonton did score on a power play too, but Edmonton was completely undisciplined. They were unglued. Evander Kane went into that game. He did an interview with Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada saying, I can't be taking 2 5s and 10s. He took 2 penalties in the first 10 minutes. And I think, and that's why I said it last night, I think he was the main culprit in setting the tone in the wrong direction for the team. And no, they didn't get the goaltending that they wanted. No, the defense wasn't particularly good. No, the forwards weren't that effective in generating much offense on Sergei Bobrovsky. But when you allow a goal 56 seconds in and then you start taking dumb penalties, and yes, I will say that the Panthers were great at just absolutely doing a fantastic job selling some of those plays. Like Brad Marchand, a masterful performance. Give the guy an Oscar for selling that high stick. Bobrovsky flies and flails after a little guy like Victor Arvidsson, bumps into him. And unfortunately, the officiating bit on those. And so I understand the frustration from an Oilers point of view. The fans were going crazy from an Oilers point of view on the officials. And I like to say it here. I mean, I don't like the excuse of saying it's on the refs. They hate the Oilers. They hate Canadian teams. There's the fixes in, because we see those texts. They come into our pre and post game shows. The officiating, I just say, don't expect anything from them across the board in any game. Doesn't matter if it's a Canadian team playing. Doesn't matter if it's the Oilers playing. It could be Columbus and Nashville on a Thursday night in February, and the officials will probably have a bad night because it's just not at a good spot in the National Hockey League right now. So last night they did have an impact on the game. I think there was 8 penalties called in the first period and then just 1 in the second period. And then obviously we saw things get out of hand in the third period. So they did have an effect on the game. But I mean, if you're the Oilers, why are you going behind the net 200 feet from your goal and getting your stick up on Brad Marchand, who's an itty bitty guy, and you're Evander Kane? Like, don't do that. Why are you hooking a guy in the offensive zone when you're Evander Kane? Don't do that. Why are you going on the ice when you're not being aware who's coming off the ice, and all of a sudden the Oilers have 7 guys out there? Don't do that. And then the Arvidsson one, I mean, that one was highly questionable. I didn't like the call. I didn't like the sell by Bobrovsky, but you could tell at that point the ball and the snowball was already rolling downhill, for lack of a better term. Yes, the officials had an effect. And if you're John Klingberg, don't skate into the ref when you're trying to bobble or hang on to the puck and it's bobbling in the corner. Like, there were so many instances where there could be frustration with the officiating. I'll throw a pet peeve of mine out there to you is drop the puck. The linesman can't drop the puck without having a word with both centermen. How many false starts do we see? How many centermen do we see get kicked out? So it is super frustrating. But I think once you accept that the level of officiating is pretty low to begin with, that might help some people in terms of dealing with the officials game to game. But it wasn't all on the officials going against the Oilers or anything like that. The Oilers were undisciplined and got out of hand.
Yeah, I think something that you and Jesse talk a lot about is that they should make it so officials have to have some sort of availability after the game to say, why they called certain things. Is that ever something that you've thought about?
Actually, we had that discussion earlier this week here at Edmonton Sports Talk. And I remember years ago when I first started covering the NHL, this was like 2008, 2009, something happened in the game and they wanted to talk. We as media wanted to get something from the officials. So I don't know if they had to go to the league PR, but what happened was a pool reporter from Edmonton was granted access to Mick Magoo for 5 minutes. And he gave an interview, and then the quotes were distributed to the media working that game. That was the last time I've heard something like that happen. I know the league doesn't really want the refs to talk. I know people want to hear from the officials, but I understand why, from a league point of view, that they don't want their people to talk. And the other thing, too, is they don't want to build these personalities. I know we had Wes McCauley calling the game yesterday with Francis Chiron, and people love Wes McCauley because of his funny announcements for the penalties. But I'm not gonna lie to you, ladies. Like, I get annoyed when I hear him talk. I'm like, oh my God, dude, just drop the puck. Don't talk to the players like your best friends. I've had conversations with players about this. They get annoyed by the officials, whether it's linesmen or refs, and you have to talk to them like they're your friends. You have to know them on a first name basis. Otherwise they get offended. Like, I have a lot of issues with the officials, but that's just my personal gripe. And it really doesn't have a big impact on the game as much as some people might think it does.
I never realized how much the players and the officials talk to each other until teams started doing mic'd up videos with the players, and you see how much they actually interact in one game.
Yeah, the number of warnings that Nathan MacKinnon gets before he gets his unsportsmanlike. It's like, all right. And even Mikko, once upon a time, it is interesting to see that there's a lot more conversation, but understandably too, sometimes it can be a little disruptive to the flow of a game. Obviously, Florida has this knack for baiting teams into undisciplined play, but I was curious if Edmonton has more capability of playing this style of hockey. And I look at players like Evander Kane and Corey Perry. Evander Kane towed this line in the wrong way in game 3, but he seems like a player that could actually deploy this style of hockey in a way that kind of beats Florida into that style of hockey as well. So I was curious, like, moving forward, how does Edmonton counter what Florida does best?
Yeah, they got dragged into the mud last night, and that was trying to play Florida at its style, and that is being, using that rat mentality. And you saw the Oilers, especially in the third period, go out of their way of trying to be overly physical, and that's not really their game. Like, usually they're a skating team, they have skill, they can play physical. We didn't see them cycle the puck. We didn't see them really establish a lot of momentum in the offensive zone. They didn't have good possession in the O zone. Like, it seemed like they were off in terms of their mentality right out of the gate. You saw Evander Kane, speaking of him, skating around during the player introductions and all that. I don't know, like, maybe he's trying to get hyped up, but Edmonton's game is kind of what we saw in the first 2 games of this series. It's you go speed with speed, you attack the Panthers, you get in on the forecheck, get physical with them, not the cheap stuff, not the I need a pound of flesh mentality, which Edmonton obviously had yesterday. And I think Brad Marchand, there was that one clip of him where he was like pointing to his head and he goes, we're smarter. And Florida really was smarter than Edmonton. Edmonton got too carried away with that type of mentality of trying to play the rat style. And you're right. Evander Kane can be physical. Evander Kane can be effective against Matthew Tkachuk like he was a couple seasons ago in that Oilers Flames second round series, where Tkachuk did nothing outside of game 1 because Kane was all over him. But now you've got this Panthers team where it's not just Matthew Tkachuk. You've got Bennett, you've got Marchand, you've got guys like Ekblad being little pests out there. There's a whole pack mentality. So, that kind of changes the style the Oilers have to attack the Panthers. And you can't just, have an Evander Kane go to Matthew Tkachuk and take him out, so to speak, in the series. So that's where it does differ from that Flames series a few years ago. If Edmonton wants to have success and get back into the series and even it up on Thursday night, they're going to have to look at what they did in game 1 and for chunks of game 2, because last night everything they did was wrong and they're going to have to throw it away, and they got carried away. And so, motivate yourself after the loss, but do not try to build off of anything that happened in game 3, because it was terrible from an Oilers standpoint.
It seems like, so I think I was watching McDavid in his post game, and he said something like he felt like the game didn't really get away from them until the third period, which I thought was really interesting. But I wonder if what he was talking about was kind of stooping to Florida's level of physicality.
I think that is exactly what he meant, because in the second period, when they cut Florida's lead to 1, they're kind of in it. They were back. They got that power play goal to start things off in the second period. And then where it started to go a little bit sideways before it got stupid in the third period is Florida answered with that goal like a minute 20 later. And then not long after that, they had Vasily Podkolzin with a bad giveaway at the blue line to make it 4-1 on the Bennett breakaway. So at 4-1, we've seen the Oilers come back from deficits like that in these playoffs. So, if you have the belief, you can dig yourself out of a 3-goal deficit, like McDavid was alluding to, then if you keep it composed, you might be able to chip away. And the Oilers didn't do that in the third period. They became unglued. They focused too much on trying to get their pound of flesh, trying to physically hurt Sam Bennett. And that's what I think of Connor McDavid was talking about. And I think he's right, because even at 4-1, they kind of had a chance. But Stu Skinner goes and he takes a really bad puck over glass penalty. That's where you could tell like his focus was gone. He allows the goal on the power play shortly after that. Then he finally gets yanked. That's when the wheels completely fell off. So I understand what Connor McDavid was saying in regard to them being down 4-1, but still sort of being in it.
I think what's interesting too in a best of 7 is there are going to be emotions that carry over one game to the next, and it just gets more heightened. And so a player like Sam Bennett, whose play around Stu Skinner has rightfully created a lot of frustration, it felt like the residuals of some of the emotion that created did boil into game 3. So I guess, do you view that as, like, what is your assessment of Sam Bennett? Because from the outsider perspective, he's obviously really effective for Florida, but he has taken some liberties with other goaltenders beyond this series too.
Awesome player, Meghan. Like, seriously, fantastic impact player. He's going to make bank here on this next contract. Everybody's talking about that, and understandably so. But it's so convenient that he somehow falls into goalies all the time. I mean, we look at game 2, he fell on Stu Skinner's leg, and Skinner was okay, obviously, but he got tied up. I think it was with Ekholm. Ekholm pushed him one way, but somehow Bennett found a way to fall on top of Stu Skinner. I mean, the physics of that don't make sense. So he is great at that. We call it the dark arts around here. We have a lot of respect for the dark arts, and he does it to a T. He's probably putting on a masterclass performance in those. So the most frustrating thing, I think, if you're a team playing against Sam Bennett, is he does that, gets away with a lot of that stuff. And then on top of it, he's a super skilled player that loves and lives for these types of situations, high pressure, competing for a cup. And I think he thrives, and we're seeing that again. So Oilers fans hate him right now. Oilers fans have hated him since he was a Calgary Flame, understandably so. And he is winning the battle, or the war, I should say, right now, having won the battle last night. And it does piss you off. And that's why we saw Trent Frederick go after him, give him a couple of cross checks to the ribs and try to hurt him, because they want to send the message to Sam Bennett that what he's doing is not okay and it's not acceptable, and he's going to pay for it. And, was it the best way to handle it? Probably not. You want to do it between the whistles, but Edmonton at that point knew the game was out of hand. So they started taking liberties. But I'll tell you what, Sam Bennett is a guy that all 32 teams would love to have on their team, on their roster, helping them, march towards the Stanley Cup, because he's damn good. And he seems to do it the best. So he's the master of the dark arts right now in the NHL.
I love that. I don't want to pretend game 3 was something it wasn't, but I want to key in on Corey Perry for a second. He leads in power play goals throughout these playoffs. And once upon a time, I thought his contract was a bit rich for the role I thought he'd be playing in Edmonton. I thought it'd be more of a depth role, but he's come up with some really timely goals in crucial moments. And he's obviously hanging out with McDavid on that top line. What has his role been in these playoffs and getting them to another cup final back-to-back years?
Yeah. And you're right. Like, he started out as a depth guy. A lot of people around here, I was surprised by the contract. I recognize what he has done over the course of his career. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, Hart Trophy winner, all that stuff. And as the season has progressed, like, he kind of worked his way up through the lineup, and he was always very consistent. He scored 19 goals this season. He's not the fastest. His hands are still pretty good. His mind for the game is great. He's a competitor. And I think he's really become a leader on this team, and he has nestled in on the top line. And, is he the perfect fit there? Maybe not. You probably want a Zach Hyman up there, but Hyman's done for the playoffs. Is Perry the quickest? Is the game sometimes too fast for him? Sure. I think you can make that argument, but he's smart enough to get to the right places at the right time, and we're seeing that. The goal he scored yesterday was great. He's been excellent. I think a great bargain signing at 1.4 million. And I think the other thing he has provided is a good example and a reminder, kind of being the beacon for the team when they get lost, to get it back on track. So there's something to be said about Corey Perry and his ability to help drag his team back into it, whether it's a timely goal, a big play, he'll throw a hit, he'll muck it up, he'll live up to that Worm standard and notoriety he does carry with him. So he's kind of been Mr. Everything for this group. And you know, when you're Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or whoever, and you're in the prime of your career and maybe things are getting out of hand or a game slipping away, you can look at Corey Perry and he seems to be the guy that always has the answer in terms of doing the right thing at the right time to get everybody back on track. So that's kind of how I would describe him. He's kind of the guiding light at times, which is good and speaks to the depth of this team and why at 39 years old or 40, whatever he is now, he's still in the National Hockey League as an effective player.
You just talked about Zach Hyman. I just wanted to go back to that for a second. With him just being out this series, I just wanted to get your perspective on how his absence has kind of affected Edmonton's play in this series.
Yeah, huge, Chloe. He is he's a dog, as we've been calling him around here lately. We got that dog in him. And I mean, he was on pace to like set the record for hits in the playoffs. And Zach Hyman, I think, only had like 55 hits, somewhere around there during the regular season. He was well over 100 in the postseason before his dislocated wrist. And he scored big goals and he worked hard. He would be the guy that would be down low, helping to establish the cycle. He would be sitting in front of the opposition net, taking cross checks, tipping pucks in, scoring garbage goals. Like he's a little bit of Mr. Everything. He's kind of like Corey Perry, except 10 years younger and maybe, you know, different body type, doesn't skate particularly well, but he gets there. And he is a guy that the absence is being felt. I mean, you look at the right side of the Oilers and you go, well, he's better than Connor Brown. He should be slotted in ahead of Corey Perry. He's very reliable. He's well liked. He's a glue guy in the room. Everybody on the team likes Zach Hyman. And so that injury has a huge impact. Now, it's a next man up mentality. The Oilers are fortunate. They have a lot of good NHL veterans, maybe not as good as Zach Hyman, but they have guys that should be able to fill in the hole in a kind of a platoon way. But there's no denying that the Oilers are missing Zach Hyman right now, because he would be the guy in on the forecheck. He'd be the guy hitting anybody on the defense of the Florida Panthers. He would be the guy mucking it up in front of Sergei Bobrovsky. He would probably make Sergei Bobrovsky flop around and fall a lot more too. It's just he's in the prime of his career, at the top of his game, very effective, and it is a huge loss for them. Should it cost them a Stanley Cup? No, but the significance of him being out is being felt for sure.
I compare it to Arturi Lehkonen, what he means to the Avs. I don't know if that's a reach or even underselling what Zach Hyman is to the Oilers. So I wanted to ask, because the path to the Cup this year has felt so different from Edmonton's path to the Cup Final this year compared to last. What do you think are the key differences that stand out to you in this group?
This group, they have a lot more veteran NHL depth. There aren't any tweeners in the lineup or on the roster. I mean, the guys that are sitting out right now, Jeff Skinner, who's been in the league for 15 years. He's been a 40-goal scorer. He's been an all-star, and he's been on the outside looking in. They had to healthy scratch Victor Arvidsson for a while. He was supposed to be a big signing for the Oilers. He's scored 30 in the league. He's a little jitterbug out there. This is a team that is not small, outside of the fact that Arvidsson's itty-bitty, but he plays bigger than he actually is. They can go toe-to-toe with bigger, stronger, heavier teams. They can play different styles. They can score, a lot, but they can also play in a 2-1 game and win it. This team isn't perfect by any means. It does have some flaws, but there's just a good roster to begin with. You got two thoroughbreds in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, and they haven't had the peaks and valleys like last year, where they started 2-9-1, Jay Woodcroft got fired. They had to scramble with a 16-game winning streak, a big 8-game winning streak. They got taken to Game 7 by the Vancouver Canucks in the second round. They kind of have gone through everything. They've learned every lesson they possibly could without winning a Stanley Cup. They've lost to the last 3 Stanley Cup winners. Colorado got the better of them in the conference final. Then they lose to the Golden Knights in the second round. Then last year they lose in the Stanley Cup final in Game 7. They kind of don't have anything left to learn. They just need to take those experiences, implement them, keep their minds in check, and let cooler heads prevail. And they should be able to find a way to beat Florida. Now, Florida's a great team. These are the 2 teams that are built for the Stanley Cup, with the way they've dispatched everybody along the way in the playoffs. But yeah, this Edmonton team, I mean, this is their moment. This is what they were built for. Whereas last year it was, you expected them to be good. It was a tumultuous start, and then they kind of peaked at the right time. Whereas this year, the expectation was for them to get to the Cup final and to have success, regardless of who they're facing. They have had a little bit. They won Game 1. They're still in this series. Yes, it got away from them last night. But I remind people that last year in the final, the Oilers beat the Panthers 5-1 in Game 6. They beat the Panthers 8-1 in Game 4. Like, you're going to see these crazy games within a series, but it's still something that you can get over in a Stanley Cup final and game to game. So this team's more built for the Stanley Cup as opposed to the one last year, where they had younger guys, softer players, let's call them, and some tweeners. And so that's, to me, the major difference. And if they can use some of those lessons and implement that into their game and the knowledge of what it takes to win and to persevere, I think we're going to see them, rise up here in the next few games.
I know. I look back at the Tampa-Colorado Stanley Cup final, and it was an interesting exchange back and forth, with Game 3, if I'm remembering correctly, feeling similar to probably how Edmonton feels right now for Colorado. And I would certainly not count Edmonton out of this series. I wanted to key in on the back end, too, for a second. I felt like Darnell Nurse is a player, another one whose contract and his value on the ice I didn't feel totally matched up, but I think he's lived up to expectation a lot more throughout these playoffs in the absence of Ekholm. Bouchard, I think, has shown a lot of growth as a young player. What should people know about how this back end is built a little bit different this year?
Yeah, well, everybody in Edmonton hates the Darnell Nurse contract, so good instinct there. Yeah, this defense, they move the puck well. They're bigger guys. Their decision making collectively can be suspect. I mean, Matthias Ekholm, everybody loves him around here. He has become their number 1 defenseman. Everybody loves the Viking, Matthias Ekholm, around here. Him and Bouchard, he's also the Bouchard whisperer, because Bouchard didn't have a particularly great season defensively. I mean, he was phenomenal offensively. Everybody gives him his praise for his offensive abilities, but he struggled all season long in his own zone. A lot of turnovers that led directly to goals against. And so there was a lot of question marks around Evan Bouchard in his own zone. And even through the first round, about halfway through against LA, he had his struggles, but he really dialed it in and started to play better after, I think it was Game 3 or 4 against the Kings. He's had some spotty moments along the way and in the series even, but this Oilers defense on paper, I mean, it's not going to wow you, but Darnell Nurse had a better season in the regular season. He's had some struggles in the postseason. Brett Kulak is kind of like the quiet, steady presence that nobody ever talks about, and don't give him the praise that he deserves, because he has been just very, very good consistently for the Oilers as a third pairing guy. They brought in Jake Wallman. I think that was a good move. He's been a really good fit for the Oilers. John Klingberg was awful when they signed him after coming off double hip surgery. And then in the playoffs, he woke up a bit. And then they have Troy Stetcher kind of waiting in the wings. So it's not a great defense on paper, but they find ways to patch it together. And when they get help from their forwards, it goes a long way. And then, the key to the Oilers defense, and watch for it in Game 4, is if early in the game they're moving the puck up the ice to forwards efficiently with nice, crisp passes, generally that means the team's going to have a good game. But when they're bobbling the puck, going D to D, slowly regrouping, that's a sign that they're not on their game. So it's kind of like a house of cards. If one falls, they all fall. And for the most part, this group has been able to help keep it together, but they don't get support from forward sometimes, and that kills them. And then if you don't get a save, that also reflects poorly on the defense. But for the most part, they've been good this postseason, and it's a collective that has to get it done for them. And when they are working together in unison, they have success.
It is time to address the goalie in the room. Just for a second, where are you at with Stuart Skinner? Can he get this job done? And what do you think the team's belief is in him?
Yeah, you want to talk about another guy that gets dogged a lot is Stu Skinner. He's from Edmonton, and people either love him or hate him. And after last night, they hate him. But the team was so bad in front of him. He wasn't particularly good on the first goal against the Brad Marchand goal 56 seconds in. He was swimming around trying to track the puck. Who knows what he was doing? But after that, like the Verhaeghe goal was nice. The Reinhart goal, I mean, Klingberg loses the puck in the corner and there's a turnover, and Reinhart's a 50-goal man, has done that in his career. Bennett on the breakaway, good luck. I mean, Bennett's on fire this postseason. So it wasn't all on Stu. And the other thing, too, is like he had a terrible start to the playoffs, just like the Oilers. In the first two games against LA, nobody was good, including Stu Skinner. He sits out. Calvin Pickard goes 6-0. Calvin Pickard, the way he went 6-0 wasn't pretty. They call him like the best street hockey goalie in the world, and he kind of has that mentality, and it was effective. And then he got hurt, and Skinner had all that time to kind of get himself in the right place mentally, and he did, and he went on a really good run. So going into Game 4, Stu Skinner is the best goalie of all time in Game 4. He's 6-0. I think he's got like a 125 GAA, like a 950 save percentage, 2 shutouts in those 6 Game 4s that he's played in the playoffs in his career. So he tends to get better as playoff series go on. This favors him going into next game. He generally bounces back well after a bad game. He's going to need help from the guys in front of him without question. But if he can reel it in and play the way he did in Game 1, then I think the Oilers have a good chance. And, you know, the history and the statistics are also on his side going into this one. He is a lightning rod of controversy. People don't like his post-game interviews because he's very positive and aloof, let's call it, to the negativity around him. But that's just the way he handles it, because he's a guy like all goalies. Meghan, Chloe, I don't know if you're in the locker rooms too, but you know goalies are weird. They're crazy. They live in a different world, right? And they have to exist that way. And he's no different. But, you know, people get annoyed when he's like smiling and positive after losses. And they're like, what is wrong with you? Well, he's just trying to deflect the negativity because he feels it. He knows what's going on. He lives in Edmonton. He's from Edmonton. He's got like 8 or 9 siblings. Of course he hears what's going on. But to his credit, he usually bounces back pretty strong.
They get mad at you for being negative. They get mad at him for being positive.
Oh, it's my fault.
You just can't win.
This is obviously Tom's fault.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I fully embrace and accept all responsibility for the loss last night.
Do you want to talk about leadership for a second, Chloe?
I would like to just talk about Connor McDavid. I thought last year we got just a tiny little glimpse seeing what he was like in the locker room because of that documentary. And I think a big point of that was that scene of him telling his teammates that they need to dig in, that their effort was just not good enough. So I just wanted to know from your perspective, being there covering the team, how his leadership has changed from last year to this year and kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, he's evolved, obviously. I think he's much more comfortable as the captain. I mean, he's been the captain for a long time now, but all those experiences, the frustration, him not going out for the Conn Smythe trophy presentation, it is nice to get that peek behind the curtain when it comes to McDavid. He's good, and he works with Darnell Nurse and Leon Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Zach Hyman. He is the captain, but it's kind of a group effort with those guys. They're the pillar of the team. He is the heartbeat when it comes to how this team goes. And Draisaitl's in lockstep with him. Let's not kid ourselves. It's interesting because last night it was Stu Skinner that said it post-game. Leon actually got up and had something to say to the group and had to address the team. I think those two read off of each other so well. They're very good friends, and they kind of go hand in hand as the leadership group. So McDavid gets it. Like, you talk to him around the room, he's looser. He's willing to give you something. He understands his role. He has evolved as a leader. He knows that he's in the prime of his career, and this is the time to win. So that he has really gotten way better. I remember when I met him before the Oilers drafted him, I got sent to do a thing heading into the scouting combine, and we met each other and we chatted. And he's like, by the way, I don't give anybody much media wise. Like, I don't want to create newspaper bulletin board material and stuff like that. That's fine. I don't care. We're on the same team here. And then, so he was dull in his interviews and he didn't say much, and he let his talking happen on the ice with his play, but it has changed. And I point to this too. After the Oilers clinched against Dallas, him and Draisaitl were at the podium, and they were in their full suits. They had their little Western Conference champion hats. They just kind of put them on the table, and they looked mad because they said the job wasn't done. And I think they live by that. I don't think it was a show of any kind. I think that's genuinely who they are, how they feel about things. And then even last night, looking at them on the bench, they were angry. There was one point where Draisaitl, they kind of went into a tight shot of him on the bench, and he kind of like puckered up his lips, and he just kind of like was nodding his head. And I'm like, ooh, Leon's feisty right now. He's mad. He's taking it all in. He's going to use it as motivation in game 4. And I think Connor's the same way. So yes, as an individual, he's grown. You can tell being around him now, listening to him speak, being more open. We get that glimpse behind the scene from the clips in the series of how he can pop off and get mad at the group, but he's got 3 or 4 other guys that are leaders on the team that help him. So it is neat to see the evolution of the player and the captain and the leader, but he's got a good group around him to help kind of carry him.
Mm-hmm. And then just going off of that too, we talked about in our last show just their kind of captaincy group, and then we kind of got into who steps out outside of that group. So is there anyone else that you see that has really stepped up in this series, or just this playoffs in general, that aren't a part of that group?
I'd say Mattias Ekholm. I joke we call him the Viking, but like imagine being on the bench and like you're a third, fourth line guy. Say you're, I don't know, Connor Brown or Matthias Janmark, someone like that, or Vasily Podkolzin, and you're like, this game's not going great. But then you look and there's like McDavid and Draisaitl and Corey Perry and like these guys that are going to be Hall of Famers. And then you look down at the defense and there's Darnell Nurse, this rugged, tough kid from Hamilton, doesn't take no BS. And then beside him is this like Viking just sitting there. And you're like, well, I'm not worried about going out there. I'm not scared. I've got these guys. And then, oh, by the way, we have a Viking on our team who's been through it all. So I really do give Mattias Ekholm a lot of credit, and I think he's fit in glowingly. Like, it's just seamless when he came over from Nashville. One of the best trades in Oilers history. He's kind of risen, and he kind of commands that respect, and the guys in the room love him and treat him with the love and respect he does deserve, because he's polite, genuine, and he backs it up with his play. So I point to Mattias Ekholm as kind of being that guy outside the main pack that's really risen up and become a leader. And then Corey Perry has as well. And I think that's important to note. And then I'll give special props to Calvin Pickard. He's just a very friendly guy. Everybody loves him.
Really beloved in Colorado too, from like his brief time here. People in Colorado do root for him in Edmonton because of just how lovely of a person he was.
We rooted for him on the show.
Yeah, no, like we just love goalies around here generally,
true,
but we're big Calvin Pickard fans in Colorado as well.
I have a story about him, about his time when he was in the Avalanche system, if I may, really quickly.
Please.
Yes.
Okay, so great guy, Calvin Pickard. Sean Bell, also a former Avalanche. He's one of our analysts here at Edmonton Sports Talk. We do a show on Saturdays called Hello Hockey. Sean was actually Pickard's roommate in Lake Erie, so Cleveland, and before Sean got called up to the Avs for a few games. And he said that Pickard had this like baby blanket that he would sleep with over his head, and he would choke on it. And Bellsy said there would be like these funny choking noises. And finally he would like rip it off of Calvin's face and be like, man, what are you doing? And he goes, this is my blanket. And then I guess Brad Malone, former Oiler, former Av, finally like saw this when he was rooming with Pickard the next year and threw it away and didn't tell Calvin.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so Belzy said, you have to ask Calvin about this baby blanket thing. So I finally did, like the next time I was in the room talking to the team, and he's like, oh yeah, Bugsy threw that thing away. I love that thing. And he goes, I wasn't choking. I was fine. And I told Belzy that. And he goes, the dude was dying.
I'm sorry.
Like, he sounded like he was
Saved his
dying.
life.
So everybody loves Calvin Pickard. That's just a little story from his days as a member of the Avalanche organization.
I need to know what funny choking sounds like.
They must not have been funny, though. They required intervention. Like Brad Malone was worried for his life and saved it.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Was it actually his baby blanket? Like literally from his childhood?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, confirmed. When I talked to Calvin, he's like, oh yeah, I love that thing. Bugsy threw it away.
Oh.
I do think that's probably hard to overcome, the sudden loss of that.
We should
Hopefully
look at what
they're
his
still good.
stats were around that time, see if it affected him in
Sorry.
any way.
Yeah, if we could get a timeline from Sean Bell on when Brad Malone reportedly threw away the baby blanket.
Yeah.
Do some investigation.
Yeah.
All right. Earlier, you described Draisaitl and McDavid as thoroughbreds. So when I ask about the power play here in a second, I have a feeling I know where this is going, but this Edmonton power play has run into some really good penalty kills. Obviously, Florida the best through these playoffs, but they're still able to capitalize on the man advantage because of how good this Edmonton power play is. I wanted to know what makes it so lethal, so effective every year beyond the McDavid Draisaitl, or digging into those two players deeper.
Yeah, it starts with those two. I mean, you see Bouchard pass it off to either one of those two all the time. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, same thing. And they have like a bunch of set plays that they go to all the time. Obviously, we're watching. Edmonton has connected on the power play in this Stanley Cup Final, but there have been moments. I think back to Game 2 where the Panthers were great at getting sticks in lanes, taking away the one-timer from Draisaitl because McDavid's always looking for him. And it got to the point where, like last night, the Corey Perry goal on the power play was Bouchard looking off McDavid and Draisaitl, and then kind of like saucing a pass through to Perry, and he tucked it in tight. So they had to like change things up and throw different wrinkles at the Panthers when the Oilers were on the power play. And actually, they took Nugent-Hopkins off of that power play. They had Jake Wallman out there. And so I think that's a testament to how effective Florida's penalty kill has been. And at times in this Cup Final, I have looked at the Panthers PK, and it reminded me of the Golden Knights against Edmonton on the PK, where the Golden Knights for a bunch of games just had all the answers to Edmonton and everything the Oilers tried to throw at the Golden Knights when the Oilers had the man advantage. And it was sticks in lanes, taking away shots, bodies in front, clearing out the front of it. Like, I think there was a bit of a template set by Vegas in that second round series. And I think the Panthers, who, like you guys alluded to, already have a great PK in this postseason, best in the league. They implemented a couple of wrinkles and were looking for things and have been effective in taking away some of the options that the Oilers tend to utilize. And so it's on Edmonton in this cat and mouse game to figure out different ways to get through Florida's PK. And I think they will. They generally do. The instincts of McDavid and Draisaitl are too good not to try the same thing over and over and over again. They usually find little solutions here and there. So it is an interesting cat and mouse game. We'll see what the Oilers can do in Game 4 and what those two, McDavid and Draisaitl in particular, come up with, because they can be sneaky. But Florida has done an excellent job in taking a lot of options away from the Oilers on the power play.
We'll begin winding this down here in a second, but I wanted to key in on the Dallas Edmonton Western Conference Final for a second, because Avs fans are still a little pained on the Avs' inability to capitalize on the power play because Dallas has a good PK. There's a lot of movement, and it's a high wire act for Dallas too on the kill. Edmonton seemed to make easy work of this though, and it made Dallas's PK look so human that I wanted to know what specifically Edmonton did on the power play against Dallas that just sort of overcame all of this movement.
Well, I think a lot of people point to Jake Ottinger. I thought Ottinger was actually okay. You saw a lot of like goals in tight. Edmonton mucked it up, whether it was Hyman or Perry in front. There was a focus on Ottinger to go blocker side. That was talked about a lot in the first couple of games, and Edmonton didn't really get away from that. There was quick movement. Edmonton, I think of Corey Perry scoring a goal where he kind of was released from the top of the crease and went out to the slot and was able to bury a shot that way. So I think Edmonton was better at adapting and quicker at adapting and noticing some tendencies from the Stars that they could take advantage of in that series. And that's pointing back to, McDavid and Draisaitl and them getting creative and them noticing things, going over video, being given a good game plan and strategy, and getting the upper hand on the Dallas Stars. And it's tricky. It's frustrating. You point to the Avalanche. They have the tools and the weapons to do the same thing that the Oilers were able to do, but it comes down to execution and timing. And Edmonton in that series against Dallas seemed to make all the right calls, and now they got to figure it out against the Florida Panthers. But it was an interesting series because a lot of people expected Dallas to win that playoff battle, and Edmonton made short work of them. So adaptability, I think, is a strength, and I think Edmonton was quicker on the uptake when it came to that, especially on the power play.
Hopefully that inspires some confidence too in Edmonton's ability to adapt to this series with Florida game by game. So I wanted to ask about coaching too for a second, because Knoblauch obviously inherited kind of an interesting situation and has now led this team to 2 Cup Finals back to back. What is his role in the success of this team?
Open the gate, let McDavid and Draisaitl out. I'm kidding. Kidding. He pushes the right buttons. I think one thing he did when he came in here and taking over for Jay Woodcroft was he simplified. There was a lot of information being thrown at the players last year when he came in, almost to the point where they were bombarded. It got complicated. And I think he didn't have to come in, and he talked about it when the Oilers started turning it around last year, is he didn't really have to change the fundamentals of the system. He just kind of simplified some things and then allowed these players to go out there and do what they do best. And that's freewheel a little bit. Sure, you give them a bit of a structure, but and a game plan and some pointers to attack each team every night. But I think he recognizes, you allow these guys to go out there and do their thing. And his composure and demeanor, I think, also helps. He's very calm. You hear him in his press conferences. People are like, geez, this guy's so boring. He doesn't get worked up. He never really puts out any bulletin board material. He's very composed, and he's like that on the bench. And I think, teams kind of embrace the demeanor of their head coach. It's just kind of a natural thing through osmosis. And so that has helped. And then the other thing too is, he leans on his assistant coaches. He's got a great resource in Glenn Gulletson, former head coach in the league. He's got Mark Stewart, who's a strategist on defense. And then you have Paul Coffey sitting there. Coffey's kind of like the hype man, breathing confidence into his defenders, getting in a guy's ear saying, hey, you got more time than you think. Hey, next time, feel free to make a play. Don't play so nervous. Like, there's a good mix there, and he seems to be the right guy to kind of utilize the guys on his bench when it comes to his assistants. And then when it comes to just breathing and instilling confidence into his group, he seems to have done that, and he has the trust of his players. And he makes really good in-game adjustments too. That's one thing we've noticed. If something's not working, he'll be quick to switch it up. It got to the point where going into the playoffs, people were saying, who's going to be on whose line? Why do you think that Evander Kane should be with McDavid instead of Draisaitl? This and that. We get into the minutia of it. And it got to the point where there were so many combinations used throughout the season that when Leon Draisaitl was asked about who would you want to play with on your line in the playoffs, he's like, it doesn't really matter. I don't care. Like, things get changed so fast. If things aren't working, we have different combinations. Chris doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger on getting the bingo balls out, and we seem to adapt on the fly and take off. So Knoblauch has an ability to do that, and I think that's kind of his strength. And he's going to be in tough here. He's going to have to figure out a solution for the Florida Panthers for Thursday. But so far this postseason, he generally has the answer.
I just wanted to point this out. Kay Durling in the chat was just talking about this. If this series doesn't go exactly how Edmonton is hoping it will, do you think that they'll be making a change to their coaching staff or front office?
No, I think everybody's set. There's been too much success. Obviously, they want to win the Stanley Cup, but everything that Knoblauch's done, he's got the best winning percentage in franchise history. And Stan Bowman just took over this year. Jeff Jackson has the keys to the car when it comes to the franchise as the CEO. Paul Coffey, even though he's an assistant coach, he's actually a top executive with the team as well. They have a good thing going. So I think even if they lose the Stanley Cup this year, you're going to see the same group come back next year.
I really have enjoyed this, but we've been so long with this as well. So you've been very generous with your time. Do you have any other questions, Chloe?
Okay, I have one more.
Perfect.
And it's not really out of context, but we were talking about Colorado, we were talking about Dallas. Just going off of Draisaitl's contract extension at the beginning of the season, we also know what happened with Mikko here in Colorado. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Like Mikko and his situation?
Yeah, just kind of how maybe Draisaitl's contract extension might have affected Mikko not signing here in Colorado or just asking for more money in general.
Yeah, he should have asked for more money, and I think he was well within his rights too. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league, had a great postseason, quiet against the Oilers a little bit, but that's okay. I think the Stars ran out of gas against Edmonton too. I should add that. Mikko Rantanen is one of the best players in the league. Like I was so surprised that the Avs weren't willing to budge and give him his money, because you saw how well he worked with Nathan McKinnon. They did win a Stanley Cup. When from an Edmonton standpoint, whenever we see the Avs come to town or the Oilers are in Colorado, you go, geez, like Rantanen and McKinnon can go toe to toe with McDavid and Draisaitl, and we would always give the edge to the Avs on defense because Cale Makar, in my opinion, and it's the general consensus around here, is better than every one of Edmonton's defensemen. So in terms of a three-headed monster, we thought the Avs had one of the best, if not the best at times. And so what went down with the Avalanche and Rantanen was mind-blowing. And the fact that he didn't stay in Carolina did not surprise me one bit. That's a guy, it's easy to say from over here, that's a guy you open up the vault for and you say, well, how much do you want? What do you need? We're going to make it happen because we want to make sure that this team's still a contender for a few years. And no disrespect to Marty Necas, but he's not Mikko Rantanen. And I think that was a bad look for the Avs, and it's too bad. I still think the Avs are going to be a great team, but you kind of chopping your own, taking yourself out at the foot or shooting yourself in the foot, whatever analogy you want to use. I felt like the Avalanche kind of did that with the Rantanen situation. And on top of that, you pissed him off. He wants nothing more to beat the Avalanche. That's how mad he was. Like, and he got what he wanted. So it was surprising. I think Rantanen did deserve whatever 13, 14 million. Like, we're getting into an era in the NHL where the salary cap is about to get to 100 million. We're going to be talking about Connor McDavid getting like 16, 17 million with the Oilers right away here. Draisaitl's already at 14 and a half. So yeah, that was super surprising. And I think Rantanen's one of the best players in the league, certainly one of the best power forwards, and they should have opened up the purse strings for him and kept a good thing going, but they didn't, which was a big shock to me, at least.
Tom Gazzola, everyone. Tom, where can people find your social media, some of your shows, some of your content?
Check us out, Edmonton Sports Talk, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, all the radio apps were on there, as well as YouTube. Meghan, as you know, you've been on a bunch of times, so we put all of our shows on YouTube as well. And then just follow me at Tom Gazzola, and you'll get nothing but Edmonton stuff. So I hope if you follow me, you'll get lots of Oilers. You're going to get a ton of CFL. I do sidelines for the national broadcasts up here. It's a lot of fun. And a bunch of silly stuff too. But yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. It's been fun on our end too. Mm-hmm. We'll have to have you back on
I'd love that.
You win Game 4 for the Edmonton Oilers, because that will also be your fault.
Obviously. And next time I'm going to need some Prosecco, okay?
Absolutely. It's a deal.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Oh my gosh, there's so much I feel like relates back to the Avs in different ways. Mm-hmm. One thing I think is interesting too with the Mikko Rantanen conversation is Cale Makar is due for an extension soon. And so I look at the way a team like Edmonton is constructed, and they obviously believe in this mindset of paying your top players.
Mhm.
And you hear just how significant to the Oilers' success McDavid and Draisaitl are, and you see the impact on the ice. It makes a lot of sense why that would be kind of a sentiment that Tom expresses there.
Mhm.
But for Colorado, it's not so different, right? Like I think Nathan MacKinnon took kind of a team-friendly contract,
Yeah.
and Cale Makar did in ways too, but now he's due for another
Mhm.
here soon. And so they're going to have to pay Makar, I
Yeah.
think is going to be the interesting part. And they just discovered they have to invest in the 2C position with Brock Nelson's contract.
Mhm.
It's no longer an area of the lineup they can take any shortcuts with, because it came at the expense of the success of the team in the end. You know, the Casey Middlestat gambled, didn't quite pay off, and JT Compher is an amazing, versatile player, but he's not a second-line center. He could flex up in the lineup, do spot duty there, but it just didn't really work, and Nazem Kadri left huge shoes to fill that I think it becomes that roster puzzle conversation then, and how hard it is to build a worthy top six.
Yeah.
And also the other parts of your lineup that you kind of sacrifice a little when you have Devon Toews and Cale Makar as a top pairing. Like
Yeah.
in hearing him talk about how Edmonton's back end is constructed, it is the part of the lineup that they haven't been able to pour into as much because they are trying to invest at the top. And I think goaltending too has been where I've been a little critical of Edmonton. That's been an area that's been hard to perfect for them too. But Colorado was in that room up until Mackenzie Blackwood, and they ended up paying some big draft capital to make Mackenzie Blackwood work.
Mhm.
You know, Kovalenko prospect moves out there too to make it happen. But hopefully that is an area of the Avs lineup with goaltending that is finally resolved. But the next piece of business on the horizon soon will be that Cale Makar extension. And he's the best defenseman in the league, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah,
We
don't
didn't
take
say
you,
that.
You
We
didn't,
didn't say that.
Chloe didn't say it. So
I've
that,
never said that before in my life on any show.
so that's how you know it's real.
Yeah, when he was talking about how they kind of had that three-headed monster, and you know, it was hard
It's
to
hard.
like it was interesting to him that the Avs didn't decide to pay Mikko. It just kind of made me think about Cale and his contract extension, and maybe the Avs just kind of having to pick and choose with, well, we want to give Cale an extension, and hopefully it's a big one.
We want to be able to meet whatever his
his
needs
expectations
are going to be.
Right. And in doing that, that just meant that they had to let go of Mikko. I love that we're at the very end of the season. Avs and Dallas aren't even playing anymore, and we're still talking about this.
I'm like, so I have a friend in Dallas media, and she's actually from Colorado. So her
Mhm.
name is Savannah, and she's covered the Stars this last year. And she'll be coming to Denver later in June, and I want to have her on the show for Pucks and
Yes.
Prosecco.
Yeah.
But I'm already envisioning, like, why are we still talking about
know,
the
right?
Dallas Stars in June? What is happening? But
Yeah.
it's great
It's interesting.
perspective.
I agree.
And obviously with the Central Division,
Mhm.
we're going to always talk a little bit about Dallas. Like,
Yeah.
you can't escape it.
But we'll have other questions.
We'll
She's
have
got a
other
fun
questions.
job, so
Yes.
it'll be a little interview with her, but we will talk about Dallas.
Yes, don't be dramatic, everybody. I'm just preparing you. We might talk about Dallas a little bit more later this month.
It happens.
I'm sorry. There's a lot of learning lessons, though, because
Mm-hmm.
when I asked him about Dallas PK, Edmonton being able to capitalize on the power play in the face of it, I asked very specifically, and he said quick movement. And immediately I felt validated in everything. I felt frustration over with the Avs power play because the Avs stopped moving their feet. They became too stagnant. Because I agree that I think Colorado has weapons to deploy on their own power play that are pretty impressive, that just didn't have the impact that a McDavid, a Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins continue to have for
Mhm.
Edmonton on that top unit. And that's because I think they stopped moving their feet. And I wanted to shout out Tom's point about the overall physicality of Edmonton. I don't know if it gets enough credit for the way in which Edmonton as a whole has become a little harder to play against.
Yeah.
And I think even on the power play, this shines through because Colorado was losing the puck along the wall on the power play, being forced to the perimeter, in part because they weren't moving. It was able to pick them off more readily because of that with Dallas's PK. And the way I saw Edmonton get around this was by being quicker, but also being stronger on pucks along the wall and not being worked off them so easily. And so I want to give Edmonton some credit too for just that kind of step forward from one year to the next. But also there's a path forward for Colorado's power play. It's still a position for them to fill in terms of who's going to be running it next year. So I'm excited to see what that hire will look like. But I think the Avs are still in good shape in terms of what that power play can be next year.
Love how we just always have to connect it back to Colorado.
Back to Colorado.
How can we make it about us?
Zach Hyman is basically our Terry Lehkonen. And to hear Stu Skinner and how he kind of is nonchalant about things, I was like, the Georgiev parallel just crept into my brain of
I was thinking that
how
too.
the opposite of that being true, where he absorbs too much. A goaltender absorbs way too much of the outside noise is detrimental to his performance.
Yeah.
And similarly, being pulled from games. You know, if Stu Skinner took that so personally and let it affect his play in his return, you know, like in the same way that Swayman Ullmark in that Boston round where they were ousted in the first round, it messed with their confidence to have the goaltending switch up. And so I think having a nonchalant goaltender who can let things roll off his shoulders is actually really a great thing in a goalie.
Yeah, what I was thinking about when I thought of Georgiev was him saying that usually Skinner plays better towards the end of the series. And I feel like that was something that I noticed a lot with Georgiev. The first few games were a little rough, but then he just kind of stepped up towards the end there.
Shout out to Winnipeg round 1, Georgiev.
Yes.
After that crazy game 1, he did lock in, and I thought he was fine in the subsequent Dallas series that year. Obviously, just Devon Toews was out a little bit, and then Von Nichushkin leaves. It was just nightmare fuel. But I think Edmonton's in an interesting spot because obviously these first 2 games have been super close for both teams, and it slips from their grasp in game 3. Edmonton becomes a bit unraveled. But I love Tom's point about learning all the lessons through this point. I think the leadership group in particular, you know, the McDavids, the Dreisaitl's, having learned a lot of these lessons the hard way up till this point, that's where that could really shine through in this series and how they respond in game 4. If they've absorbed these lessons and can channel it into something productive and adapt, I still think there's hope for Edmonton to, one, I always wanted this to go 7, and I still think that it can.
Not to connect it back to Colorado.
Please connect it back to Colorado.
But Avs Dallas series, we saw, you know, the games were so close, overtime, and I can't even remember now. 1 and 2, right? Was it that?
Oh,
Maybe?
For Dallas Avs?
Yeah.
It was games 2 and 3.
2-3. And then they had that game where the Avs came out and won 5-1.
Their response,
Yeah, so very similar to what's happening with Edmonton and Florida right now. So obviously Dallas came back and won that series. I think it's entirely possible for Edmonton to do the same thing.
Colorado got punched in the mouth game 3. 6-2 loss to Tampa.
Yeah.
So not so different from 6-1 loss in game 3 for Edmonton. It's wide open from my perspective, this series. And I'll be curious to see the response from Edmonton. I forgot, you want Edmonton to win the Cup?
I do.
Okay. I'm super mixed, but I'm starting to lean a little more towards Edmonton.
It's just hard because my 2 things are want and who do I actually think has the skill to.
Right.
And so it's like 50-50. But like want, what I feel in my soul is what's important, right?
Follow your heart, Chloe.
Thank
What
you,
does the heart want?
The heart wants Edmonton to win.
I wanted to revisit something for a quick second. When we did our Cup Final preview and we asked about fan base.
Yes.
I forgot. I know we were split on fan base, and then for the best celebration, were we split on that too, or did we both go Florida?
We both went Florida.
I thought,
but I'm pretty sure I went fan base. I went Florida. Oh, you went Edmonton.
I went Edmonton, and I saw this video that immediately made me think of us. It was a watch party for an Edmonton Oilers game, and they were doing this Ukrainian dance. And it's this like Ukrainian folk dance where they're swinging people back and forth like an elevated mosh pit, crowd surfing type of deal. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And it's not like these are professional dancers necessarily, though I'm assuming everyone involved was to some degree.
Right.
But you just see a crowd of people in Oilers jerseys. So from outside perspective, you're like, are they all just trained in this? I will show it to you. But
love it.
That kind of... that I was like, not only do I still think they might have the best fan base because this was so coordinated, but they might also have a great celebration because whatever they were doing here looked incredible, and they're long overdue for a cup. I
Yeah.
might have to switch my vote, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and go for best celebration, hand that over to Edmonton too. I got too scared to ask about Hunter the Lynx to Tom. Like, hey, what's the internal
deal?
pulse over there? Like, how do you guys feel about him? Because we're scared.
Yeah.
It came up on my TikTok, and it was a post that had gone like, I don't know, 20K views of a
Mhm.
woman like talking about Hunter the Lynx. Why does he have a six-pack? I'm
Right.
afraid of him. So we're not the only ones
That are talking about it?
who are scared
Oh, who are scared. Right.
and talking about it.
When we posted that TikTok, somebody commented a picture of the Devils mascot who also has a six-pack.
Why are we giving mascots six-packs? That is probably
ASMR.
all from me today. Is there anything? Oh, okay.
What?
Time out. We did want to talk about Brad Marchand.
Oh.
Do you want to come on tomorrow and talk about Brad Marchand?
I just wanted to give him a little shout out because I think it was really interesting to me that when he was traded, it was only for a second round pick. I think that was not that it was a bad look for him, but I don't think they gave him enough credit. And now look what he's doing in this series and the playoffs in general. I saw a stat that he's the oldest player to score a goal in the first 3 games of the final. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I think that's just so incredible. Him scoring in the first minute of yesterday's game, I feel like probably changed the momentum just a little bit in the first minute. I think it's incredible. I like what he's doing in Florida. Just another reason why he should come to Colorado. I think that would be pretty fun.
The Rat King himself, the OT winner for Florida in Game 2, he's been a huge difference maker. And then obviously his role in the Toronto series in slaying that dragon and being a thorn in their side. It is crazy to think of how much the Boston Bruins just kind of shipped out all of their pieces to include Brad Marchand, their captain. And for what? That remains to be seen. I'm so curious what Boston becomes next year.
Yeah.
Because obviously Brad Marchand, just an incredible player, but even, moving on from Charlie Coyle, Brendan Carlo, I'm just like, what is here anymore? It flabbergasts me that they could part ways with him, but he's making a huge difference for Florida. Like, when I think about what makes them effective, it's the contributions across the lineup, which was certainly true for them in Game 3. And having such big-time game players in Brad Marchand that you can deploy kind of deeper in your lineup, it's crazy to me. And that's why I still think Florida's the team to beat in this Cup final.
Yeah.
But Edmonton still has a say in it. So I just wanted to go 7 because I'm not ready to be done watching hockey yet either.
That's all I had for him.
No, we
wanted a
gotta
little
have
shout out.
a deeper dive into Brad Marchand and his impact.
Yeah.
I also want to remind people about our friends at Accurate America. You never know when and where the hail will hit when the summer storms come, and the last thing you want is to be caught scrambling when it does. So make the call before the storm. Call Accurate America. They'll partner with you on navigating insurance and provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling, and their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. Don't scramble at the last minute. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF before the storm. That does it for Pucks and Prosecco today, but we'll be back.
We have a super chat.
Oh
Let's
my
put this up.
gosh!
I missed this. This showed up so.
Heck yes!
Yeah!
Our Leon name twin. Well, he's not our name twin. He's Draisaitl's name twin.
Leon Draisaitl's in our comments right now saying he hopes that the Oilers
Praying
bounce
the
back.
Oilers bounce back. I hope so too, Leon Draisaitl. Thank you so much. All right, you guys. For real this time. We'll be back with another Pucks and Prosecco next week. Thanks for tuning in.